If you're over 60, one small action at night could silently raise your risk of having a stroke while you sleep. There are no warning signs, no pain. Just like that, you're fine one moment, and the next, you wake up with slurred speech, an arm you can't lift, or a sense of confusion about where you are. I've seen this happen to my own patients, not because they smoked, ate poorly, or stopped exercising, but because of simple, everyday habits that seemed harmless until it was too late. As a brain specialist, I'm honestly surprised by how many older adults unknowingly repeat these exact behaviors every night. Habits that over time can increase nighttime blood pressure, interfere with brain circulation, and even lead to dangerous blood clots right when the brain is most vulnerable. In today's video, I'll show you 5 common nighttime habits that may quietly harm your brain and one simple but powerful change you can start making tonight to protect yourself. If you or someone you love is over 60, don't ignore this information. These aren't rare situations. This is real life happening every day. And what's truly frightening is that most people don't realize there's a problem until it's already serious. Before we dive into the details, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, yet hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on important health tips designed specifically for you. And if you find this video helpful, type the number 1 in the comments below. If not, feel free to type 0. I always appreciate honest feedback so I can improve for you. Now let's talk about the first mistake: going to bed dehydrated. It sounds harmless. You skip drinking water before bed because you don't want to wake up during the night. It feels like a smart choice to protect your sleep. But what if I told you that this simple decision could be the thin line between you and a stroke? As a neurologist, I've seen this scenario more times than I can count. Let me tell you about one of my patients, Mr. Harold Decker, age 72, a retired postal worker from Michigan. A kind man who took his health seriously. He walked every day, watched his salt intake, and always took his medication on time. But he had one long-standing habit: he never drank any fluids after 6 p.m. "I just didn't want to get up during the night to use the bathroom," he once told me. Then one morning, he didn't wake up like usual. His wife found him still in bed, confused, unable to lift his left arm, and struggling to speak clearly. He had suffered a silent stroke in his sleep. When we ran tests, the results showed his blood had thickened because of dehydration during the night. When blood gets thick, it flows more slowly, and that greatly increases the risk of clot formation. Combine that with age-related changes like stiffening of the arteries and reduced elasticity of the blood vessels, and what once seemed like a harmless habit suddenly becomes dangerous, even life-threatening. As we get older, our sense of thirst naturally weakens. By the time you feel thirsty, your body may already be mildly dehydrated without you realizing it. And overnight, your body loses fluid through breathing and sweating. For younger people, this isn't usually a problem. But for folks in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, even mild dehydration can make your blood thicker, slow down circulation, and increase the risk of clots. These clots can get stuck in the brain and in just a split second rob you of your ability to speak, move, or remember. It gets even worse. When you're dehydrated at night, your body has to work harder to keep your blood flowing, and that can cause your blood pressure to spike dangerously. When high blood pressure combines with thickened blood, the risk of a brain vessel blockage shoots up. This is called an ischemic stroke, which happens when blood can't reach important areas of the brain. And the scariest part? It can all happen while you're asleep. No warning signs, no pain, nothing to alert you. It could be a night just like any other, but you wake up and everything has changed. Mr. Harold was lucky to survive his stroke, but life hasn't been the same. He can no longer drive. He walks with difficulty and relies on his wife to help him bathe and get dressed every day. If I had only known that a single glass of water could have made all the difference. He told me, his eyes filled with tears. That's what I want you to take away from this. Going to bed even mildly dehydrated can put your brain at serious risk. You don't need to drink a lot. Just a small glass, about 4 to 6 ounces, around 30 minutes before bedtime is enough. That small amount helps keep your blood flowing smoothly through the night, protecting your brain while you sleep. It's a tiny action, but it could mean the difference between waking up to a normal day or waking up to a life turned upside down. And what troubles me most is that Mr. Harold's story is not unusual. There's another common mistake that many people make, and it often happens right on the favorite chair in your own living room. The concerning part. Most people have no idea that this simple habit is quietly putting their health at risk. If you're still with me and finding this information helpful, type the number 1 in the comments so I know you're following along. Now, let's move on to the second mistake. Mistake number 2. Falling asleep in a recliner or on the couch. It sounds harmless, even cozy and relaxing. Many older adults have the habit of dozing off in their favorite chair after watching TV, reading, or just resting a bit after dinner. Over time, it becomes part of the evening routine. But what if I told you that regularly falling asleep in a chair like that could silently increase your risk of having a stroke? Let me tell you about Evelyn. Mrs. Evelyn Marks, age 75, is a retired music teacher living in Indiana. Every evening after dinner, she'd curl up in her old soft recliner, pull a blanket over herself, and drift off while watching the news. My husband passed away 5 years ago, she told me, and I just feel safer, more comfortable sleeping in that chair. The bed feels too big and cold now. Evelyn never thought she was doing anything wrong. But then one morning, she woke up and couldn't speak. Her mouth was drooping to one side, and one arm hung limp and unresponsive. It was a stroke, sudden and severe, but far from random. Here's the thing: when we nod off in a recliner or doze on the couch, our neck often falls forward or tilts to the side for long periods. That may not seem like a big deal, but for older adults, it can actually reduce blood flow to the brain. This is especially dangerous if you already have narrowing of the carotid arteries, a common issue in older adults that often goes unnoticed. When your head stays in an awkward position for hours, pressure builds on the blood vessels in the neck, which are already fragile. It's like a garden hose being bent. The blood can't flow normally and may even pool in place. And what happens when blood doesn't flow the way it should? It creates the perfect conditions for blood clots to form. These clots can suddenly break loose and travel to the brain, especially in the early morning hours when blood pressure naturally rises after sleep. On top of that, sleep in a chair is often light and easily disrupted. Poor quality sleep increases inflammation in the body, throws off blood sugar control, and interferes with blood pressure cycles, all of which become serious threats to an aging brain. Mrs. Evelyn was fortunate to survive, but the effects were lasting. Her right hand no longer works the way it used to, and playing the piano, a part of her life for over 40 years as a music teacher, has now become a painful struggle. I thought it was just a harmless habit, she softly told me during a follow-up visit. I never imagined it would take music away from me. And that's the cruel truth about these quiet habits. Things that seem completely normal, even comforting, can hide risks big enough to change your life forever. If you often fall asleep in a chair at night, this is your wake-up call. Make the choice to get up and head back to bed, the safest place for your brain to rest. Be sure that your head and neck are properly supported. That simple act helps your brain receive the oxygen and circulation it needs to stay protected through the night. And while a recliner may feel cozy and familiar, there's another habit that can be even more dangerous, especially if you're taking blood pressure medication. Many people don't realize that this everyday behavior can cause your blood pressure to drop too low during sleep, cutting off blood flow to the brain and putting you in danger without even knowing it. Mistake number 3. Taking blood pressure medication at night without clear guidance from your doctor. A lot of people do this out of routine without thinking twice. You take your medication right before bed following the label or what you believe is the right timing. Maybe a doctor mentioned it once, or maybe you simply assumed nighttime was the best choice. However, for many older adults, especially those over 65, this seemingly harmless habit can silently trigger a dangerous chain reaction while you sleep. And in some cases, it can lead to serious consequences like a stroke. Let me share the story of Mr. George Lambert, age 78, a retired firefighter from Pennsylvania. A disciplined, determined man who took pride in managing his health well. Every night, right at 10 p.m., he would neatly line up his medications on the kitchen counter, one pill for cholesterol, one for heart support, and a small tablet to control his blood pressure, a beta blocker he had been taking for years. He believed he was doing the right thing following instructions as directed. But one morning, he didn't wake up as usual. When his daughter called to check on him, he answered with slurred speech confusion and weakness on one side of his body. When emergency responders arrived, they found his blood pressure had dropped to a dangerously low level, and he was in the middle of a severe stroke. What happened to George isn't rare. In fact, it's more common than you might think. Here's what you need to know: blood pressure naturally dips at night as your body winds down for rest. This is part of your natural circadian rhythm, and for healthy individuals, this mild drop takes pressure off the heart. But for older adults especially, those taking certain blood pressure medications that drop can become dangerous. This is especially true when medication is taken too late or the full dose is taken right before bedtime. When blood pressure drops too low, it's called nighttime hypotension, and it can prevent your brain from getting the blood flow it needs to function properly. That flow of blood to the brain, called cerebral perfusion, can fall sharply, and it can happen silently without any warning signs at all. You might go to bed feeling perfectly fine, but while you sleep, prolonged low blood pressure can slow down your circulation. And when blood flow slows, the risk of blood clots increases. These clots can get stuck in already narrowed blood vessels, blocking blood from reaching parts of the brain, and in a split second cause irreversible brain damage. In George's case, the stroke affected his short-term memory. Now he struggles to remember the names of family members or keep track of simple things like daily appointments. "I thought I was doing everything right," he told me, his voice nearly breaking. Eyes filled with disappointment. I followed the instructions. No one ever said it could put my brain at risk. That's why it's so important to talk to your doctor about when you take your medication, especially as you get older. In many cases, shifting blood pressure medication to the morning or splitting the dose throughout the day can help prevent extreme nighttime drops and protect your brain from silent but serious danger. For some people, adjusting medication timing may also depend on kidney function or overall sleep quality. Never assume there's a one-size-fits-all schedule for medication. What worked for you at 50 could pose real risks at 75. And when it comes to nighttime risks, you might be surprised to learn that even something as simple as your bedroom temperature could silently affect your blood pressure. Cool air might feel pleasant and refreshing, but its effects on the aging brain can be more serious than you think. Mistake number 4. Sleeping in a room that's too cold without enough covers. It may sound reasonable you're trying to improve your sleep by keeping the room cool. And it's true that many sources suggest a lower temperature can support deeper sleep. But that's only true if your body is kept warm in the right way. Most older adults don't realize that sleeping in a room that's too cold, especially without proper blankets, can silently raise the risk of stroke. It may sound harmless, but when something goes wrong, the consequences can be serious. Let me tell you about June Callahan, age 80, who lives in the suburbs of New York, a child of the Great Depression. June was known for her frugality and often avoided using heat so as not to waste warmth, as she put it. Even in winter, she would set her thermostat down to just 60°F, about 15.5 C, and sleep with only a light blanket, just enough to keep warm. But one morning, her son found her sitting quietly on the edge of the bed, shivering, confused, and unable to move the right side of her body. She had suffered a stroke, and it wasn't a random event. The problem lies in how the body responds to cold. When temperatures drop, the body reacts by narrowing the blood vessels to preserve core warmth. In younger people, the body can adjust quickly to cold environments. But in older adults, especially those with underlying heart or circulation problems, this cold-induced constriction can cause blood pressure to spike dangerously. Worse still, it can slow down blood flow. And when blood moves slowly through narrowed vessels, the chance of forming blood clots increases. If those clots form while you're asleep when you're not moving, and completely unaware, they can easily travel to the brain in the early morning hours and trigger a stroke. There's another factor we can't overlook. Cold air affects sleep quality. Sure, you might fall asleep quickly, but when the room is too cold, your body struggles to enter deep restorative sleep, the kind your brain and body need to heal and recover. You may toss and turn, wake up during the night, and this disrupted sleep raises stress hormone levels like cortisol. And when cortisol levels rise, it doesn't just strain the heart, it also raises blood pressure and increases clotting risk. Mrs. June had no idea that her endearing habit of saving money had put her in danger. "I just didn't want to waste money on heating," she told me during her recovery at a physical therapy center. Her voice still had a slight slur, and her right arm was too weak to write like she used to. She once crocheted gifts for her grandkids every week. Now those same trembling fingers struggled just to hold a pencil. It didn't have to be this way. For older adults, the ideal bedroom temperature at night should stay between 65 and 68°F, about 18 to 20 C, along with breathable layers like a cotton comforter, a light wool blanket, and if needed, a pair of socks to keep your feet warm. Cold hands and feet are a sign that your body is working hard just to preserve its core temperature. So, before you turn down the thermostat another notch tonight, pause and consider what you might be risking in return. Saving a few dollars on heating means nothing if it costs you your ability to speak. Keep your balance or stay independent in your daily life. And when it comes to bedtime habits, there's one more thing I see far too often. It has nothing to do with medications or room temperature. It has everything to do with what we allow into our minds before we close our eyes. And its impact on the brain might surprise you more than any of the other factors we've talked about. If you're still watching and find these in-depth insights helpful, type the number 1 in the comments so I know you're still here, still with me. Now let's move on to mistake number 5, and this is something many people fall into without even realizing it. Watching stressful shows or the evening news right before bed. After a long day, sitting down, turning on the TV, and watching the news or a suspenseful crime drama might seem like a relaxing routine. In fact, it probably feels familiar and comforting. For many older adults, it's become part of the nightly routine, a way to feel connected to the world or stay mentally sharp. But what if I told you that the content you choose to watch before bed could quietly be pushing your brain closer to a stroke? That's because mental stress, even the kind you're not fully aware of, can disrupt the brains. Chemistry affect your heart rate and trigger physiological responses that increase the risk of blood clots. And those clots could silently threaten your health overnight. That's exactly what happened to one of my patients. Mr. Donald Reed, age 77, a retired police officer from Ohio. For years, Don stuck to a familiar routine after dinner. He'd pour a glass of iced tea and sit down to watch the late news along with a few intense crime shows. It helps keep my mind sharp, he used to say. But what he didn't realize was that this content, instead of helping him unwind, was quietly putting pressure on his nervous system and cardiovascular health. One morning, he woke up with slurred speech and numbness. On the left side of his face, he'd suffered a mild stroke while sleeping. The doctor wasn't surprised by his condition. But as we looked closer, the picture became clear. Don didn't have high cholesterol. He didn't smoke. And overall, he led a fairly healthy lifestyle. However, every night before bed, his body was flooded with high levels of cortisol, the stress hormone released when your body feels threatened. What's tricky about this kind of stress is that you may not even feel it, but your body still reacts as if it's in danger. Violent news, tense plot lines, and emotionally charged shows can unknowingly activate your sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response. As a result, blood pressure rises, heart rate speeds up, and worst of all, your blood becomes thicker and more prone to clotting. Mental stress also disrupts your sleep and prevents your brain from reaching the deep rest it needs to heal and recover. When all these factors combine, they create a perfect storm for a stroke. Don's brain never truly rested at night. Over time, chronic stress and poor sleep made his blood stickier than normal. When you add aging into the mix, like stiffening arteries and reduced circulation, the question is no longer if a stroke might happen, but when it will. Thicker blood forms clots, and once a clot blocks blood flow to the brain, nerve cells begin to die within minutes from lack of oxygen. Don was lucky to survive, but now he struggles with reading a hobby he once loved deeply. "I always thought the TV was just background noise," he told me, eyes downcast in regret. "I had no idea it was quietly rewiring my brain." If you're over 60, what you feed your mind each night carries serious weight. The information you take in, especially right before bed, can influence your blood chemistry, your heart rhythm, and even your brain's ability to protect itself. So, prioritize peace. Choose calm, gentle content. Choose rest, not stimulation. And if you're wondering what you can do in the evening to boost brain health beyond avoiding dangerous habits, there is one simple, powerful change that can make a major difference. It doesn't start with a pill. It starts with what you put on your plate. Let me show you why food is truly the most powerful medicine you can use to protect your brain. That brings us to point number 6. So, rather than risky habits, what should you be doing? By now, you've heard about several seemingly harmless behaviors that can silently put your brain at risk while you sleep, from dehydration and poor sleep posture to mistimed medication, a cold bedroom, and mental stress. But here's the key. Avoiding those risks is only half the journey. If you truly want to protect your brain, you need to give it what it understands, what it trusts, and what it was built on: real food quality sleep and a steady daily rhythm. Not pills, not pricey powders, not promises packed in a bottle. I'll never forget one of my patients, Mrs. Arlene Moore, age 74, a retired school secretary from Missouri. She came to see me after a mild stroke had left her with reduced hand coordination, making it harder for her to write. She didn't smoke, she wasn't overweight, she even exercised a few times a week. But when we took a closer look at her daily habits, I noticed a pattern I've seen over and over again. Her kitchen counter was lined with supplements, one for memory, one for heart health, one for circulation, and of course, a multivitamin. But her actual meals. Breakfast was usually skipped. Lunch might be a protein bar or a few crackers. Dinner was often a microwaved frozen meal, or sometimes nothing at all. "I take all kinds of vitamins every day, doctor," she told me, "but I still feel foggy and tired all the time. And now after the stroke, I just don't get it." What Arlene didn't know, and what many older adults are never clearly told, is that your body doesn't process supplements the same way it processes real food, especially as you age. Your liver slows down, your kidneys become more sensitive, your digestion changes, And when you keep loading your body with high doses of isolated vitamins, it can disrupt your internal balance, interfere with medications, and in some cases, even raise your risk of blood clots. This can happen when certain supplements affect calcium levels, thicken your blood, or cause dangerous fluctuations in blood pressure. We decided to change everything. I asked Mrs. Arlene to stop all her supplements for 2 weeks. Instead, she started eating real meals, simple, balanced, nutrient-rich, and easy to digest. Her breakfast became a boiled egg, a slice of whole grain toast, half an avocado, and a handful of fresh blueberries. Lunch included dark leafy greens, a few almonds, and grilled chicken. Dinner was light, but nourishing, a portion of salmon sweet potato and steamed broccoli. She drank water throughout the day and took short walks around her neighborhood every evening. After just 1 month, she started to feel energized again. Her blood pressure became more stable, her sleep deeper, and at her most recent checkup, she told me something. "I'll never forget, I never thought food could make such a difference in how I feel. I used to believe pills were the only way to stay healthy." She added, her eyes misty with emotion. "Let me be clear about this. You don't need massive doses of vitamins to keep your brain sharp. What you need is consistency, hydration, restful sleep, and real nourishment from real food. That's the path to reducing blood clot risk, keeping your circulation steady, and protecting your clarity of mind for years to come. But the journey doesn't stop there. Even if you've changed your nighttime habits, what you do during the day matters just as much. That's why in this final section, I want to share with you a few simple but highly effective steps you can take each morning. These actions are backed by science and can help protect your brain before a stroke ever has the chance to take your future away. This is your final wake-up call about a type of stroke that comes with no warning. We often assume danger announces itself with chest pain, dizziness, or a sudden fall. But when it comes to the brain, the most serious threats often creep in quietly. Some strokes strike while you're sleeping, and in just one moment, they can change the rest of your life. The sad truth is many strokes like these are entirely preventable. They don't come from rare diseases or hard-to-detect conditions. They come from everyday factors we often overlook. They don't arrive from anything strange or unexpected. They come from your daily habits, the glass of water you skipped the recliner, where you accidentally nodded off the pill you took, too late the cold room you never thought to question, or the tense news broadcast you watched just before bed. It's these familiar things repeated night after night that quietly open the door to risk. And that's what makes them so dangerous you stop noticing them. But here's the truth that gives you power. Your daily habits, every single one, are either your strongest form of protection or your quietest form of harm. And the choices you make tonight could be the line between waking up tomorrow as yourself or becoming someone you no longer recognize. You don't need to live in fear. You need to live with knowledge and intention. Because once you reach a certain age, your body doesn't bounce back the way it used to. It deserves care. It deserves consistency, not chance, not guesswork. That means drinking water even when you're not thirsty, choosing your bed over your chair, checking in with your doctor about when to take your medications, keeping your room warm enough to support healthy blood flow at night, and giving your mind peace, not stress, before you close your eyes. Small things like these can lead to a very big difference. And more than anything else, it means nourishing your brain with what it truly needs: fresh air, gentle movement, deep sleep, and real food made from real ingredients. Not colorful pills, not products sold through flashy online ads. The best way to protect yourself from a silent stroke isn't something you can buy with a few clicks. It's the result of small, steady choices repeated every day, every night, to keep your brain safe, strong, and sharp for years to come. I've sat beside too many patients after they've suffered a stroke. People who were once active and independent, now struggling just to take a step, finish a sentence, or remember the name of a grandchild they adore. And every time I find myself wondering, what if they had known this truth sooner? That's why I'm sharing it with you today. Tonight, as you prepare for bed, think of your brain not as a machine you can ignore until it breaks, but as a delicate, extraordinary part of you that needs your care, your attention, and your action. You have more control than you think, and it's never too late to take that control back. Because the strokes that come without warning, those are the ones that can change everything. But even one habit you choose to change tonight might be the very thing that protects you or even saves your life. What I've shared with you here isn't just information. It's an invitation to live more fully, more intentionally, and more honestly with your health. Now I want to hear from you. Take a moment and share one insight or small change you'll start applying after today's video. Let's build a community where we support each other to live healthier, more meaningful lives one day at a time. If you found this video helpful, type the number 1 in the comments. If not, feel free to type 0. Your feedback helps us grow and serve you better. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you never miss valuable health content like this. Thank you for spending this time with me, and may you live a life guided by your choices, not your fears.